Well, welcome once again, everybody. It's time for our next lesson in logic. In this part, we're going to study another form of immediate inference. We covered some immediate inferences in the last lesson. In this lesson, I want to cover conversion, obversion, and contraposition. Categorical sentence equivalents occur when two statements have necessarily the same truth value. In a sense, it's the opposite of how we define the term contradictory. Contradictory sentences necessarily have the opposite truth value one from the other. Now, there are three methods in category logic for obtaining these equivalents. There's conversion, and you can remember that by remembering that after the prefix con, you get an E and an I immediately after. And those work on E and I sentences. Contraposition, you can remember because after the con that comes up front, the A and the O are the next vowels. Contraposition is a technique that's going to work for A and O sentences. And lastly, we'll study obversion, which works for all the sentence types. So that's a pretty helpful one to have in your pocket. So essentially, by the time we're done studying these three methods, you'll have two methods for any sentence type to obtain logically equivalent versions of that particular sentence. That is to say, you'll have two ways of transforming that sentence into something that says the exact same thing. So that's pretty much what we're going to do. We're going to learn how to take any categorical sentence and do at least two operations upon it so that you come up with a total of three sentences that pretty much say the exact same thing but in different ways. That's a nice skill to have in your pocket. Now, when we do these operations, one thing I need to point out, we've already learned how to make inferences, immediate inferences, from a single premise to a conclusion using the Boolean and the Aristotelian squares of opposition. What you need to know is that these techniques that we're going to study now work on Boole's square of opposition. And since Aristotle's square just expands upon Boole's square, well, that means that all these operations are going to be valid in his system of logic as well. So that's a useful thing to know. So once again, we'll bring in our familiar A's, E's, I's, and O's. More importantly, we'll bring in the green and red circles that I've used to illustrate the information contained in those categorical sentences. And let's get this going. Let's start first with conversion because that's the simplest. And that works on the E's and the I's. Now, conversion is the simplest because all you do is you swap out P for S and vice versa. So if no S or P, no P or S, and if some S or P, some P or S. And if you notice, the E and I sentences say the same exact thing about S and P, so I guess it really shouldn't be surprising that you could swap one for the other. Well, how about an illustration to get us started? Let's start by doing conversion on an I. If some birds are things native to Antarctica, well, you notice that X in this circle is right there in the middle of the two circles, and you could swap one back and forth. It doesn't really make a difference, just as long as you keep that X in the middle. So let's put a bird there, and we'll let the red circle represent birds, and we'll let the green circle represent things native to Antarctica. I'm really kind of worried that I put an animal in there that I probably shouldn't have. But hey, at least they're cold climate animals, right? So if some birds are things native to Antarctica, pretty clearly some things native to Antarctica are birds. We've just said the same thing about the green circle that we said about the red circle and vice versa. Now let's try conversion on an E sentence. No dogs are cats. That's a good one to try. So what that tells us is that nothing is in the overlapping category between the two. And if that's the case, no cats or dogs. Just that simple. What it tells us really is that the category of dogs and cats are completely distinct and with no common ground in between them. And how about another one involving an E sentence? The great poet John Donne once said that no man is an island. Well, doesn't it pretty well follow from that no island is a man? Yeah, what that tells us is that there's just no common ground between the two. Islands and men are distinct categories with no overlapping members. Now, it's important to notice that conversion does not work with the A sentences or the O sentences. So, for example, if all ladies are humans, and I'm pretty sure they are, well then, does it follow that all humans are ladies? No, not at all. That's an illicit conversion. And if some humans are not ladies, there's an O sentence for you. Does it follow that some ladies are not humans? I'm sure some feminists out there would take exception to that. What this illustrates is that you can't do conversion on A and O sentences. In fact, the fallacy of illicit conversion occurs. It's actually a formal fallacy in logic, as opposed to the informal fallacies we studied in Lesson 4, when you make these sorts of inferences that we just looked at. So by way of review, conversion works on E and I sentences, and it occurs when you just flip-flop the places where the subject and the predicate term occur. And just to give you a couple more examples, if some firemen are brave persons, can you figure out this one? Yeah, some brave persons are firemen. And if no used car salesmen are reliable persons, well, then no reliable persons are used car salesmen. So let's take a look at the other sentence types that we have to deal with, and more importantly, the information contained in those sentences. And once again, remember, it's kind of strange that the sentences that bear the contradictory relationship to one another should have the same operation here that would render logical equivalence, but that is the case. And having said that, let's move on to talk about contraposition. That works with the A sentences and the O sentences. What that happens is you switch the subject and predicate term, and in that sense, you could say that you start out by doing conversion. But then, after you do that, you change each term to its complement. And a complement of a term is the set of all things to which the term does not apply. And typically you get a complement just by putting the expression non right in front of your class term. So for dogs, the complement of dogs would be everything that isn't a dog, or more simply, just non-dogs. So you got two steps here. Do a conversion, and you're already familiar with that, and then change each of our terms to its complement. So let's say you have all S are P. Step number 1, all P are S. Then all non-P are non-S. It's really that simple. Or, in the case of the O sentences, it gets a little bit more complicated because you're going to have double negatives popping up all the time. But some S are not P, then you just say some P are not S, and then you change each term to its complement. Some non-P are not non-S. Those O sentences get really tricky. Usually you find contrapositives used more when you're dealing with A sentences. Well, how about a few examples to help? All apples are fruit. You notice I just moved all the apples into the fruit category. And what that means is, if it ain't a fruit, it ain't an apple. All non-fruit are non-apples. So anything outside of that green circle, so to speak, can't be an apple. That's our fruit circle. How about another contraposition on an A sentence? All bulls are cows, right? I'll just scoot one more bull into the cow category here. And what that means is, if it ain't a cow, it ain't a bull. Well, all non-cows are non-bulls. Perhaps I should have used the term cattle instead of cows, but you get the point. So contraposition, we said, works on the A sentences and the O sentences when we switch the subject and predicate term, simply doing conversion, and we make sure to change each term to its complement, because if we don't do that, then we're going to commit the fallacy of illicit conversion that we talked about earlier. So, for example, if all humans are mortals, what does that imply to you? Well, it probably means that if it ain't mortal, then it's not human. All non-mortals are non-humans. Or how about some runners are not vegetarians? This one gets a little involved. How about some non-vegetarians are not non-runners? Oh, all those negatives will really trip you up. So one other formal fallacy that we want to avoid committing is the fallacy of illicit contraposition. And I use the ladies and humans example again just to make the point. So take as a premise, no ladies are non-humans, and that sounds true. Therefore, can I draw the conclusion that no humans are non-ladies? Well, no. There's plenty of humans that are non-ladies, all the guys. By the way, notice in this example, when I switched the term non-humans to its complement, rather than double up on the nons, I just dropped a non that was already present. You don't want to let those nons stack up on you. But looking at the example involving an I sentence, some humans are non-ladies. Quite true, all the guys. Does it follow that some ladies are non-humans? Once again, that's a false conclusion. And it also illustrates once again that when you switch the term non-ladies to its complement, you want to just switch to the term ladies. That's a set of all things to which the term non-ladies does not apply. Well, now it's time to work on obversion, which is interesting because that's the one method of getting logical sentence equivalents out of all the sentence types that we've got. But it also has two steps, and these ones are a little bit more complicated. First, you have to change the quality of the sentence. So you change an A sentence to an E sentence, or vice versa, and you change an I sentence to an O sentence, or vice versa. Basically, you move left to right along this table. And then you change the predicate to its complement. So this is the one technique where you don't swap the position of the S and the P, and that's important to remember. So let's take a look at a few examples. So let's give each of these a try. Let's start up in the upper left-hand corner first. All S are P. Well, we're going to change that to a negative. So no S are P, and then we're going to change P to its complement. So no S are non-P. And that makes sense, right? If all the S are P, none of them fail to be P. Let's go over and take a look at the E sentence. No S are P. We're going to change that to an A-style sentence that all S are P, but then change the predicate to its complement. So all the S are non-P. And again, when you look at that graph, it makes perfect sense. All the S in this particular case are kept away from the green, being in the green circle. Now to the bottom left, some S are P. Actually, this one's kind of easy. We're going to have to change it into an O sentence, and then that means we're going to have to change the copula, and then we're going to add a non to the predicate. So some S are not non-P. It just looks like a double negation right there, doesn't it? And lastly, let's do the O sentence. Some S are not P. Well, we're going to change that to a some S are P, and then we'll change P to its complement. Again, that's pretty simple. Some S are non-P. Well, how about a few more exercises? How about some of these sentences? Some of my birthday gifts are in Tennessee. All cows eat grass. How about all my farts are smelly? That's not a confession on my part. It's just an example. How about some drunks stumble? Some bears are not tasty. Now, first we have to change these into their categorical sentence forms, and then we can perform the operations that we want to perform on them. So, first example up. Some of my birthday gifts are in Tennessee. Well, first thing we want to do, turn that into our very clear categorical sentence form. So, some birthday gifts of mine are things located in Tennessee. Now, once we have our crystal clear categorical sentence form in hand, you notice that that's an I sentence. Let's always do obversion first and get that out of the way. So, the obverse of that is some birthday gifts of mine are not non-things located in Tennessee. A little awkward, isn't it? But it actually does work out. And more importantly, we know that we can do conversion on this sentence. So if some birthday gifts of mine are things located in Tennessee, well, some of the things located in Tennessee are birthday gifts of mine. Get the exercise? Well, let's do a few more of them. How about this one? All cows eat grass. Well, we're going to convert that into an A sentence, of course. So all cows are, we'll say, grass eaters. Now, what can we do with this? Well, obviously, obversion works with everything. So we're going to change the all to a no, and then we're going to change grass eaters to its complement. What do we wind up with? No cows are non-grass eaters. And that's true, and it's logically equivalent to our first statement. The other thing we can do contraposition on this. So we'll swap the subject and predicate term and change both to their complement. So all non-grass eaters are non-cows. If it ain't eating grass, it ain't a cow. And that's logically equivalent to our first statement. Okay, this will be a fun one. All my farts are smelly. Don't laugh, all yours are too. I'll have to invent a special category here. How about farts o' mine are smelly things? Okay, now we have our categorical sentence form in hand. What can we do with an A sentence? Well, obviously obversion can work. So let's do the obverse first. We'll change the all to a no, and we'll change smelly things to its complement. What do we wind up with? Yep, that was easy enough. Obversion's not too hard once you get the hang of it. Now, contraposition also works on A-style sentences, so we can swap the subject and predicate term and change each to their complement. So, all non-smelly things are non-farts o' mine. If it don't smell, it ain't my fart. How about this one? Some drunks stumble. Well, we lack a copula there, and stumble has to be changed into a category. So some drunks are stumblers. Well, what can we do with this? It's an I sentence. Obversion is an easy one. We know that we can do that. We're going to have to change it into an O sentence and then change stumblers to its complement. So we're going to wind up with a lot of negatives. But it makes sense. That's logically equivalent to our original sentence. Now, one other thing we can do, simple conversion. So, if some drunks are stumblers, some stumblers are drunk. Get the exercise? Well, this one will be the toughest one. Doing these exercises on the O sentences is oftentimes awkward, but just follow the steps. Some bears are not tasty. Well, we need to turn tasty into a class of things. Some bears are not tasty things. All right, first up is obversion. We're going to change the copula here, and then we're going to put a non onto the category of tasty things so that we designate the complement of the predicate class. And when you do that, that was pretty straightforward. Some bears are non-tasty things. This one's going to be a bit more tricky. Contraposition works on O sentences. So we're going to have to take bears and tasty things and swap their positions, and then we're going to have to put nons on each one of them. Can you see how many negatives we're going to wind up with that? But it's just a matter of following the rules. Some non-tasty things are not non-bears. If you think about that, that is just a really complicated way of saying some bears are not tasty things. All right, you've done all of these exercises. Congratulations. Here's another set for you to do on your own. How about this group? Not all wines are sweet. Notice that's the denial of an A sentence, so you want to go to the contradictory of the A sentence. How about no friend of Oprah's is a friend of mine? No pickles are sweet. Some talk show hosts are not intelligent. True enough. And no stop sign is green. Work these the same way that you did the last set of exercises, and you'll get plenty of experience with obversion, contraposition, and conversion. Alright, that's all for now. Wait for more exercises in my next logic lesson. We're about to move into some categorical syllogisms. That's some hefty logical material. And not long after that, we'll be handling even more upper division stuff. So stay tuned.